Welcome back to Draft Talk. I am your host, Tyler Brook. I've got a special guest today. He is the lead NFL draft analyst at Pro Football Focus. He is the co-host of the NFL Stock Exchange with Connor Rogers, and just an overall good dude. I'm joined by Trevor Sikkema. Trevor, how you doing, man?
Tyler, I'm doing fantastic, my friend. I appreciate you having me on the show. Excited to talk a little favorite fits here with you on this episode here. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, of course. Favorite player, team fits. I'm literally like last week with Taylor, just gonna let Trevor cook here. But I do have a hard-hitting question before we even start.
Yes.
Does having an article about you on Awful Announcing mean that you've made it?
I don't know if it means that I made it, but it was pretty cool. I mean, I feel like I've been reading Awful Announcing for forever. And it's funny because Sam Newman, he's the guy who interviewed both myself and Connor Rogers for this piece that you're referencing, all about the NFL Stock Exchange. And Sam was even kind of joking around. He's like, people think that Awful Announcing is just like, when something bad happens in a sports broadcaster, like they'll like tweet it out. But he's like, we're trying to be more than that. And so it's kind of funny, like seeing my name up there. It's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do, I didn't get fired yet, but no, it was very cool of Sam to be able to do that. It was really cool to obviously not only just read back, but also a lot of the feedback and the people who kind of, we say this on the show, we say this on the podcast, like it's a draft community, right? It's not just me and Connor talking down to people or giving our opinions on things. We always want it to be a big community thing. And so when that article came out, it just was more evidence to that community building, man, which makes covering the draft a lot of fun.
So I obviously love the podcast. I remember when it first started, and admittedly, there are times I go in and out of it. Is sex addicts still a thing for the community?
It is. I don't know. Sometimes we lean into it more the times than others because we know that sometimes there's little ears that are listening to the show, or people will listen to the show on like a carpool, like taking their kids to school or something like that. So I don't know. Try not to hammer it home too much, but look, when that was like the die-hard initial people who were listening to the show at the very beginning. They named themselves that, and who am I to take that away from them? I just appreciate them being so committed to the show and getting in on all the conversation and everything. So yes, NFL Stock Exchange sex addict for our die-hard listeners is still a thing.
Well, give it a listen if you have not. I highly recommend it, obviously, and then obviously check out all of Trevor's work over at Pro Football Focus. But I'm gonna let you cook. Like I said, I just want to hear about who you think are the best fits here. Go off of it. I'm curious because obviously I imagine Michael Penix with the Atlanta Falcons may not be one of those names. I'm just curious to see what you think.
All right, you ready for this one? Let's start off with a heater.
Okay.
Bo Nix, Denver Broncos.
Oh, okay.
Love it, baby. I absolutely love it. So anybody that's been following my draft takes, kind of really going back to, honestly, like the Stock Exchange summer scouting, I had Nix very slightly over Drake May as QB2 for a little bit in the summer. Now, by the time we got to the season and into the season, it was like, okay, Drake May is better. So I'm going to have Drake May as QB2. But I really liked what I saw from Nix in his first season in Oregon in 2022, which was very surprising to me personally, because I thought Nix stunk at Auburn. Like I remember watching that first year at Auburn, and I get it. Like his dad played at Auburn. He was a legacy SEC guy, and they kind of like wanted him to be a big deal. But that's how it felt when Bo Nix was at Auburn. Like it felt like everyone just wanted him to be a big deal. They wanted him to be good, but he wasn't. He wasn't. And I watched the tape over 3 years of him playing at Auburn, and he just he could not play well under pressure. When things went wrong, he just didn't know where to go with it. It just did not look like a confident player. It didn't look like a decision maker that I wanted for the NFL level, because people were talking about him like that. He goes over to Oregon. He looks completely different. Starts to take care of the ball a lot better. Starts to play under pressure a lot better. Becomes a much more efficient guy. And then in 2023, he really took that to the next level, where the big time throws went up. The average depth of target went up, even for Oregon's offense. And he was still taking care of the ball and avoiding negatives at a very, very high level. But he was also showing you, all right, every now and then when I see that whole shot in between cover two, when I see something where the middle of the field is open, deep down the field, I'm going to let everybody's there. If we hit a concept that really gets guys open, I'm not afraid to throw it deep. And I think he's got the NFL arm to be able to do so. the reason why I like the fit a lot with the Denver Broncos is it's sort of multi-layered. From Nick's perspective, I think that even what Bo Nix does really well is reminiscent of like late career Drew Brees, right? And I'm not saying that he's going to be Drew Brees, but when you remember those last couple of years of Brees, well, his arm was kind of shot, right? I mean, like, he still had an okay arm for the NFL level, but it's not like he was just like pushing the ball vertically like he had been in previous times throughout his career. But Sean Payton still was able to develop a fantastic, potent, on-rhythm offense that was very efficient, even for what Brees' physical limitations were. Now, I think that Nix right now has a more juice in his arm than Brees, but also the mentality of what he brings to the table as a quarterback, how he approaches the game, and how he honestly wants to play the position feels very close to how Payton was designing these offenses for Brees in those last handful of years there. So I think that Payton already understands exactly where Nix is and what to do and develop him there. So from the Nix kind of like play style personality level, I love the fit there between head coach and offensive play caller and quarterback. And I also love this fit, if I'm going to be honest, because of how Denver came about it, right? They were able to move on from Russell Wilson, even though we knew it was going to be a tough pill to swallow with all that dead money. They're sitting there with the number 12 overall pick. And yeah, sure, they can try their best to trade up to like number 3 with New England or wherever to try to go up and get one of these quarterbacks. But they just got out from underneath of paying the draft price for Russell Wilson. What are you telling me that, okay, we paid the draft price. Now we're going to have to pay the dead cap price. Now we're going to have to pay the draft price again just to move on from him and get a new quarterback in? That sucks. Like that would have sucked. So instead, they stayed patient, stuck at number 12, and I think still got a player who is a really good fit. Would they have rather had a Drake May, a Caleb Williams? Like, obviously, yes. But for the draft to kind of play out the way that it did, for them to not have to use excess draft capital to get a quarterback that I think can be a good starting player for them, I think it's just a win all around when you look at him being on the Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, everything I had heard pre-draft, and, obviously it's smokescreen season. You have no idea what's true and what's not at that point. But it was just all signs were pointing to that Sean Payton and his staff were just like obsessed with Nix. And then it just kind of became this, poorly kept secret that was just going to happen at some point. I know you said you like the process of how they got him, but do you think 12 is still a little rich? Do you think maybe trade back, or are you just worried that someone else swoops in before they pick?
Yeah, so I 12 is a little rich for me. I mean, I think I had Nix like 35th on my big board or something. Yep. Now, of course, like a little more than 20 spots higher. Like that's kind of the quarterback tax that you pay, right?
Yeah.
No matter what you're looking at. Like I had Jaden Daniels ranked 21st on my big board. He goes number 2 overall. And it's just kind of like, yeah, I mean, I guess, right? I mean, that's just where we are. McCarthy goes 10. I had him 28. So again, it's just, you pay about a 20 to 25 big board spot tax to go up and get these guys. And when I look at Nick's situation specifically, is 12 a little rich for me? Yeah, sure. I would have loved for them to get him more towards the back half of the first round. But the fact of the matter is they already watched 5 quarterbacks go off the board before them, right? Yeah. And they've got teams that are right behind them in the teens that maybe could have been interested in a quarterback, like maybe New Orleans is interested, maybe Seattle was interested, right? And these are teams that aren't too far down from where they were selecting. So I think George Payton said this after the draft, their general manager, yeah, we could have traded back and picked up a couple of 4th-round picks, but why would we have risked that for a position that can turn out to be so important for us 100%. For a player that we like? So yeah, is 12 a little rich on the surface level? Sure, but full context, I really don't mind it at all.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, you came out cooking with that first player. Who do we got next?
So now I'll hit you with a little bit of a curveball. I'm going to go with a sleeper here.
Okay.
Jaden Hicks, the Washington State safety, going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I love this selection because Jaden, one, I think was way underdrafted. Because he was I think a 4th-round pick. What was his official number? Where was he? Looking at the Chiefs class right now, I probably should have came more prepared.
I got you.
Where was he?
133rd pick, 4th round.
Yes, 4th round, 133rd selection. And so, I mean, like, first and foremost, Jaden Hicks was like 55th on my big board.
Wow. Okay.
He was way higher on my big. I felt like Jaden Hicks could have been a late second, early third round type of a pick. Felt like third round at the very latest, but he ends up going in the fourth. And I really wonder why. And I look at his tape over the last 2 years. He's a very well-rounded, versatile, strong safety type of a player who I think gives you good coverage ability and 2 high shells. Now, you don't want to have him in single high situations. That's not the kind of player he is. But like as a split safety type, a guy who can like play in those robber roles over the middle. I think he was very smart at that. He was good at coming downhill. He was a reliable tackler. I think when the situation called for it, he was to be able to make good plays on the ball when it was coming his way. He can anticipate things really well. And something I liked about Jaden Hicks and just kind of his background, I've talked about this before on some of the shows that I've did. So if anybody's listened to this and heard it before, I apologize. But I do like it about Jaden because I love context to how guys get better. Jaden was a corner, I believe, in high school. And at Washington State, he switches over to be a safety. And that like redshirt freshman year, when he was still getting like practice reps and everything, in his own words, like he was overwhelmed. Like he questioned whether or not he could actually be a starter at the Pac-12 level. And it took him really dedicating to his craft, really getting into the film room, really being able to anticipate things a lot better for him to really make that impact in his second year and third year into the program. So I like Hicks as a player. I think that this was a really good value pick for the Chiefs, but also specifically for Kansas City. This is a team that loves to use 3 safety rotations.
Yeah.
And they just lost Mike Edwards in free agency. So you've got the guys in there. You got Justin Reed, you've got Brian Cook, who are already in there, who you think are okay. Those are going to be like the regular safety starters, but they like to be deep within their safety rotation. So to me, Hicks has a playing time like right away. Like he has a path to playing time very quickly. Even if it's not as a starter, it's a consistent contributor. And then who knows, a couple of years down the road, you get flexibility to maybe move on from one of those guys that I named there. And he becomes like a full-time starter in the rotation. So to me, for how Kansas City likes to use their safeties and how they always like to stay strapped with at least 3 or 4 safeties that they can put out there at any time, Hicks is such a smart, high football IQ type of safety where I think he can actually have an impact on this team pretty early on, even in his rookie year.
This is why I like talking to you, Trevor, because I feel like even if we don't agree on a prospect, you're going to pitch me and sell me on them. And like, I'll listen, you're a great salesman in that regard. Because truthfully, like I didn't love Hicks. I thought full disclosure, I thought he blacked out during Washington. I thought he just had a phenomenal game there. I do have some questions about him. Maybe if it isn't over the top safety, reading against mesh, taking the right pursuit angles on underneath routes, a little stiffness. But then I just got totally floored by the pre-draft testing. Did your eye test seem to line up with how he tested in the pre-draft process?
So I actually got to look up Hicks's like overall numbers from. Because I can't remember exactly what they were.
I remember just being shocked at his pro day, seeing what like he ran and just
what was his combine stuff? Because what did he run at his pro day? What was his?
It wasn't 4.49, was it?
I mean, I thought when this dude saw it, I feel like the light came on for him. Like vert 75th percentile, 3-cone 72nd percentile. Like I think those are pretty strong numbers. Did he run 4.49?
That's what I'm seeing. Yeah.
No, like, okay. Like I thought that there were times when he could really, when he saw it and when he was going as fast as possible, again, I did see that speed from him. And I really did. I liked Hicks as a player. I liked him more than you did, but it's okay. Like I didn't see the safety class as like a super dominant one overall, but I like the way he saw the field, I think a little bit better than you did. And maybe in those opportunities where, again, he saw it early. He was able to click and close pretty quickly. Maybe it's those times because, of course, like scouting, when people talk about scouting, like, oh, where do you start with scouting? How do you approach players? Things like that. I think something I was taught super early on with scouting is like, it's all about telling you what a player can do, right? That's the first 100%. Thing that you should notice, right? You're watching a couple of games of them. And a lot of times the strengths categories that you write down is more important than the weaknesses because you want to look at what they do well. And you say, okay, these are the things that this player very clearly does well. And for Hicks, I thought a lot of the anticipation part of his game was a strength. And I thought that when I saw those things, when the green light came on, I never really I never really doubted what he was like as an athlete. And I felt like he was able to be an impactful player over the middle. You mentioned there are a couple of games where he just absolutely balled out. And maybe those games just weighed very heavily on me because I was like, that's it right there. Like
you can see it. Yeah.
You know, you see it from him. And maybe that inconsistency is why he ends up going in the 4th round. And it was a little bit more of a shock to me because maybe I wasn't taking the inconsistencies maybe into enough consideration where the NFL kind of did. But to me, when I look at him, especially as a 4th round pick, and especially for Kansas City and how they like to deploy their safeties and how deep they like to keep that rotation, I think he can be a stand-in player again, even as soon as a rookie year.
Yeah, I mean, you sold me as far as the scheme fit too. You know, the third safety in a split safety scheme, a guy that's like almost 6'2", pretty well built, good stopping power. I like that he doesn't panic when the ball's in the air. I think a lot of these, more traditional, box type safeties, you throw at them deep and they kind of panic and, want to grab on, just do anything to not complete that pass. So
right.
You've totally sold me there. I can see that fit. Who you got next?
So my next pick here is, I don't know how much early playing time that he is going to get, but the fit of the Bengals getting Amarius Mims at number 18 to me is just a excellent job well done for them and how they approach the offseason and the types of players that they want to go towards, right? Because when you look at Amarius Mims, just an absolute freak show of an athlete. I think he wears 340 pounds better than any human walking the face of the planet that is of that size. But the big question mark with Mims is just lack of experience, right? There's a lot of inconsistencies in his game. He's got he's got that long wingspan, but if you're not exactly compact, if the elbows won't stay in, if the hands aren't going inside, well, then you start becoming, all right, the arms are now way out. Now you're grabbing the shoulder pads and now you're susceptible to holding calls all over the place. So, I mean, that was just kind of the story of Mims when I was watching him, and even the games that he played this past season when he was finally a full-time starter before he had the ankle injury and the ankle surgery that he had to go through. And so there's a lot of lack of refinement when it comes to Amarius Mims. But now he's in an offensive line room that, look at the 2 offensive tackles he's with. Orlando Brown Jr. and Trent Brown, massive human beings, right? Yep. And so Mims is more of the same. So it's not like, okay, well, this guy's got to kind of learn it for his own. This is a group of monstars that Cincinnati is now putting together in their offensive tackle room. So to me, I love the fit for them because the Trent Brown, I think it was a 2-year deal that he signed, and you can even get out of that next year if you want to. This adequately gives Amarius Mims plenty of time to get better, right? It's plenty of time for him to improve, get to a spot where you really need it. And I think that offensive line was still letting the Bengals down last year, especially on the tackle spots, especially with Jonah Williams. You had to upgrade that area. They really took that to heart. And I think the fit of not only just the fact that they really needed this player, but also the fact that they already have these massive offensive tackles there. Yeah. This is clearly what they want to gravitate towards. They're going to be able to speak Mims's language, if you will, about using his size to his advantage. And you got 2 really great vets in the room to be able to do that best. So that's why I love the fit for Mims, because I think he's got the talent through the roof. But if you were going to throw him to the Wolves, week 1, I just don't know how he would play. I don't know how he would fare. And this is a situation where he gets the time to learn with some guys who have won in similar ways in Orlando Brown Jr. and Trent Brown.
This is probably my favorite pick you've had so far. I did a lot of work on Mims. Packers started talking about potentially moving Zach Tom to center, and with all our Packers coverage, Amarius Mims suddenly became a target. Started doing a lot of homework on him, and obviously, injuries and lack of playing time are concerns. But that dude's freaking huge and can play football well. At some days at the end of it, are you big, athletic, and play football well? And just don't have to overthink it.
Right. Sometimes scouting is a lot more simple than we want it to be, right? Just have giant athletes.
The online discourse drives me insane sometimes about sometimes they overthink it. I remember Will Anderson was a big topic last year. Obviously he's already making plays just 1 year into his NFL career. And also on top of just liking the pick he chose, I just genuinely liked the Bengals draft class, at least at the top.
Yes.
Really liked Chris Jenkins. I know there's some off-field stuff. And again, I'm not an insider. I don't know anything, but from what I've heard, just some off-field red flags with Jermaine Burton. But I think on film, that guy was a phenomenal receiver. I went into watching him just thinking, probably overrated. There's so many other receivers in this class I'm going to like. I just really liked him. Another complimentary piece for Joe Burrow.
Gives them flexibility with T. Higgins as well, with everything that's going on with T. Higgins. Like, it's a sick trio of wide receiver for this year. And then if you want to move on from Higgins, which kind of feels like they're going to, if Burton breaks out, then like that gives you the ability to do that.
Yeah. And I have no allegiances to the Cincinnati Bengals. They're just a fun team to watch when they're good. So, these picks I feel like help them take that step forward quicker. And then I like your point about Mims, just the opportunity. He does not have to start right away, get him some experience under some vets. But man, once he's like there, it's going to be kind of scary.
I agree.
Defenses. All right. Number 4, where you got?
So number 4 for me, speaking of teams that just draft giant athletes all the time, I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars and their first pick of Brian Thomas Jr.
Yes.
Reason why I like this fit a lot. And, when it goes beyond just, Jags had a wide receiver need, right? Because you look at the offseason and they go, okay, well, we're bringing in Gabe Davis. We're giving him a good chunk of change, even though he's coming off not a great year. You're kind of hoping that he can get back to some of those glory days as a vertical threat that he was for the Buffalo Bills. I got to believe they thought that it would be, okay, we got Gabe Davis as the wide receiver 2. We're going to have Calvin Ridley as the wide receiver 1. Yep. All of a sudden, Calvin Ridley's not playing for a division rival. Not really sure how that happened. And that felt like it was sort of a fumbling of that situation from Jackson. But I knew that they could have wide receiver on the board anyways with their first round pick. It ended up being at 20. It ended up being at 23 instead of number 17. But regardless, they come away with Brian Thomas Jr. And on draft night, I liked it. Right? I was like, hey, talented wide receiver. You needed one. Gabe Davis couldn't be your wide receiver 1 going into the year, so I like this one. And I said to myself, this will give the Jags an opportunity to be a team that could push the ball a little bit further down the field. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that was already the direction that they were going. In looking up some numbers from last season from Jacksonville, they were top 10, if not top 5 in total receiving, like total passing yards, completion percentage, and big time throws on throws that were just 20 or more yards down the field. Wow. So like deep shot throws. Mm-hmm. They were top 10 in all of those categories. And they had the most, they were number 1 in the NFL in big time throws for passes that were beyond 20 yards down the field. So they already wanted to get more vertical last year. And now they have since signed Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr., who Brian Thomas Jr. was a top 3 receiver in the country last year in terms of, again, like on those passes of 20 yards or more, total receiving yards, total receptions, total receiving touchdowns. He was top 3 in all of those categories of any wide receiver that was in the FBS. So this is exactly the fit to where the Jags are going. And it's the type of player who allows them to take their strategy from last year, continue to implement it just with better players, more explosive players than they even had in their receiver room last year. So that's why I think this is a fantastic pick for Jacksonville and in what we saw from their offense in 2023.
Yeah, I totally agree there as well. I was a big Brian Thomas Jr. fan. I think he was the ultimate height, weight, speed guy in this class. Also really good at going up and just getting the ball in contested catch situations. Something I really enjoy about his game is for like a height, weight, speed guy, when he's going against off coverage and has to like duck around, he's got that little shoulder dip without sacrificing any speed. It's just like, that is a rare trait from like a lot of these big receivers. Like maybe he's not like the shiftiest route runner, but stuff like that as a vertical passing threat is just like so invaluable. And I thought he had a lot of traits that just blend well with exactly what you're talking about. Is if he's in a vertical passing attack, like he's just going to come up with stupid numbers next year.
I think him and Malik Neighbors being on the same team definitely helped Brian Thomas Jr. in that category. Cause Malik is, it's second nature for him to do that shoulder dip speed release, off the line of scrimmage. Like it's just what he does. It's how he gets so open. And I'm sure Brian Thomas was watching that and was like, all right, I need to do a little bit of that. So it is, like you said, it's always eye popping when bigger receivers can do stuff like that. Like I don't know what you thought of AD Mitchell, but I was a big AD Mitchell guy, and Mitchell would do the same. Like Mitchell is a 6'2+ wide receiver who I'd watch him do speed releases against corners. And it's like, okay, well, that didn't happen very often. And it just kind of went into how good of a route runner he was for a player that size.
Brief AD Mitchell aside, because I am living in Indianapolis. Just so excited about the kid. I love the jersey number pick. You just having a little chip on your shoulder. And his deep ball tracking. I don't know. I'm convinced there's just someone coaching at Texas that just taught them all how to track the ball, because I thought all of those receivers, even Jatavian Sanders, thought they all did an outstanding job last season with that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm a big AD Mitchell guy. I almost had him on this list. There were a couple that I was like, I honestly, like, the reason why I didn't have him on this list, because he's not my fifth guy. But I was like, I've talked about AD Mitchell so much. I should like highlight somebody else. But I'm glad that we got him in the show, since we're both fans, because I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah, I am too. I just heard a press conference from him too, and I'm just like, man, him learning from Reggie Wayne, like 12-year-old Tyler.
Let's go,
like,
baby.
I'm maybe a Packers fan, but I just love Reggie, man. Very excited about that. All right, we got to wrap it up. Glad we got some AD Mitchell talking there. But who was your last guy?
My last guy is sort of an obvious one, but I think I have to call it out here. Junior Colson, the linebacker from Michigan, going to the Los Angeles Chargers, right now, playing in the same defense that he played at in college. He was a 2-year starting linebacker for this team. You know, Jim Harbaugh now goes to the NFL, to the Chargers, and Jesse Minter, their defensive coordinator, follows him. And so Junior Colson getting to plug right into this defense. Harbaugh didn't say that, okay, he's going to be like for sure starting or anything, but their linebackers right now are Diane Henley and Denzel Perryman. And we've already got Harbaugh saying in rookie minicamp, like, Junior's calling out the defensive plays. Like, he's getting everybody set. He knows the defense so well already after being the starting Mike linebacker for Michigan over the last 2 years. So this is a 21-year-old linebacker who's got a throwback type of a style, right? He's not like that. He's not that like new age linebacker where he's like 230 pounds or something like that. And I'm not like knocking every linebacker that's a little bit lighter. It's a faster game in today's NFL, but Colson's like, 6'2", 245. Like, he could play at 250. Like, this is a true inside middle linebacker type of a player. So for him, I think that he has 3 down size. I think he's got 3 down athleticism, and now playing in Harbaugh's defense, he's got 3 down play recognition and IQ as well. So to me, it's only a matter of time before he becomes the starting middle linebacker of that team. And I just think that for the staff that recruited Junior Colson, who coached Junior Colson to now draft a Junior Colson, it's just an all-around fantastic fit, especially when you factor in the fact that there's an easy path to playing time for him pretty early on.
So I think I had told you that, my first year coaching high school ball was linebackers. I don't think I've told you, like, I get so frustrated watching college football linebackers just trying to take on blocks. It drives me absolutely insane. And this class did not do any favors. I watched Junior Colson and I was like, thank you. I needed a guy to watch where I was just like, like someone I can get down with. And he's like, obviously he's a little bit stiff as a bigger guy, but it's not like he's a poor athlete.
No.
And just, I think he's such an asset in so many facets. And like you said, just going back to play with Harbaugh, like I love it. I can't wait. And like we all knew he was going to take a Wolverine at least.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was only, dude, it was funny. Alex Katzen, who does great work, just like covering the draft as a whole, Chargers guy as well. Like, I remember he tweeted after Harbaugh signed with the Chargers as their head coach, he tweeted out a mock draft screenshot where every single pick that the Chargers had was a Michigan Wolverine that was in the draft. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh, that's so stupid. And then you look at it and you go, well, actually, like this could kind of be like a pretty sick haul, actually. So,
oh man, I am excited about Colson. Do you have any other honorable mentions? I know we mentioned AD Mitchell, but just anyone else that comes to mind? Do you want to just briefly gloss over?
I mean, AD Mitchell is one of them that we talked about. Like, I didn't want to just, just be a Bucks homer, but like Graham Barton's such a fantastic Tampa Bay.
Okay, still mad about that. Like, I trust the Packers. They know more about offensive line play than I do. But man, did I want Barton, just ass kicker.
When the Packers came on the board, I was like, shit. Like, I was like, this is like, they're going to take Barton. Like, Barton's still there. They're going to take him. If Tampa wanted him, they would have had to jump. And they took Jordan Morgan, who like, I like, but very clearly because Jordan Morgan and Graham Barton were kind of like offensive tackles in college who a lot of people thought would be interior guys at the NFL level.
Yep.
But very clearly the Packers must think that Morgan's got better tackle
For
versatility
sure.
than
Absolutely.
Barton does. Because if you're picking the interior offensive lineman, I don't know how you pick Morgan over Barton. But anyways, like him going to Tampa, he's such a great, like, I think just like culture personality fit for this team.
Oh my
Everything I've
gosh. Yeah.
heard and read about him, I mean, like he's just a Jason Light staple type of like offensive lineman. And you look at all the offensive linemen that Tampa has had success with on the interior that Jason has drafted: Ali Marpet, Alex Kappa, Luke Gedicke, Cody Mock. Like all these guys played tackle in college and then kicked inside.
Yeah.
And normally found a home inside. Gedecki actually kicked back out the tackle, but like that's just what Jason does. He drafts offensive tackles in college and then plays them on the interior at the NFL level. So I think that's a really good fit. Honestly, like I would have taken Drake May number 2 overall if I was making the call personally, but what Cliff Kingsbury has kind of shown us as a play caller at the NFL level lines up pretty well with what Jaden Daniels does well, you know, especially when it comes to attacking vertically outside the numbers. I mean, that's a lot of what Daniels had success with at LSU. So I think that like that one is also a fit there that makes sense. So those are the 3 that kind of just like come to my mind immediately. Oh, and I think Xavier Worthy is a big time fit for the Chiefs. I don't mean to be too stereotypical with it. I think it's more than just the deep speed thing, but also Kansas City sort of demands you to pay attention to speed in all facets. Like they're not just going to send this guy deep. Okay. Like he's just a deep threat and we'll throw it to him every now and then. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we see where the league is going. If your corners can't tackle, we're going to throw a quick screen to our fast wide receiver. And guess what? If you can't tackle him, he's going to get 20 yards on you because he's got that kind of speed. So the Chiefs have really emphasized getting corners who can tackle on their defense. And I think a lot of what they have done this offseason with the receivers that they have brought on has also sort of like been the opposite side of the coin of them saying like, okay, well, yeah, if you can't tackle, if your corners can't tackle, we're going to basically make your life a living hell with all the speed that we have on the field in different ways. So those are a handful that just kind of come to my mind.
Cool. Well, Trevor, appreciate you doing this, man. Just a quick housekeeping note. This will be the last Draft Talk YouTube episode for, oh my gosh, till June, the week of June 10th. It's going to be a minute. I'll be out of the country, but appreciate everyone listening. Trevor, what do you got going on? Are you just taking some time off after the draft, or what's up? What are you got working on?
Yeah, we got a couple of weeks off for NFL Stock Exchange. We're still doing draft recap stuff over at pff.com, but Stock Exchange will be back. We'll kick off summer scouting in June. But before then, my co-host Connor needs to get married and then go on his honeymoon. So
yeah, that's right.
There was like a couple. We were like, all right, we'll take a couple of weeks off, and then we realized, oh, it's a couple of weeks, and then you get married, and then the honeymoon. So it's a little bit longer than we thought. But we'll be back with a vengeance, as they say, when summer scouting gets kicked off in June for us on that show, and we'll start to dive into these 2025 guys. Which before we hit record, you said you've already taken a little bit of a dive into the 2025 guys. So now you're getting me excited. So it'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, the grind never stops, especially when you're a sicko. But appreciate you coming on, man, and glad we ran into each other at the combine as well. It's always good to catch up there. I'm sure I'll see you again next year, because as long as it's in Indianapolis, I will continue.
And I hope it stays in Indianapolis for forever, because I always connect to the combine with Indianapolis. I love getting to go there every single year. So can't wait to see you then, and appreciate you having me on the show, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks to everyone listening. Take care.